Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. All right, let's start off with our solar weather for today, our space weather. Solar wind, 411.8 kilometers per second. Planetary K index continues to remain at a 1 and will do so for the next 24 hours. We don't see any corona holes. Our M-class flare possibility has gone up, though, to 20% over the next 24 hours. Yet our geomagnetic storm activity has dropped down to next to nothing in both mid and high latitudes. This was about in the 20% range some areas the other day. So that's what's going on out there. We got this tells us about far side sunspot exploded to hurl the bright CME into space in the 23rd, now rotating into the Earth side of the sun. So that's something to pay attention to coming up, but it's not here yet. Okay, astrologically, we are right here. So we are dealing with the same energies as yesterday, the same type of energies or elements. Conscious mind is in Libra. Libra is an air sign. Unconscious mind is Aquarius. Aquarius is also an air sign. Put the two air signs together, you've got a lot of communication, a lot of activity taking place when you have those two signs. Now, of course, the differences in what they represent with air are the differences that are going to appear in your life. For example, the conscious mind is dealing with the ideas of Libra, which is karmic balance, things of this nature, whereas the underlying Aquarian air is more of kind of that new inspiration, that new breath of fresh air. So whereas one of the ideas of energy is and appears to be taking care of issues that are old issues and balancing them out, Aquarian energy is about seeing the new visions of the future, the new ideas, and finding a way to express and bring those forward. So it's kind of like the meeting of the old with the new. At least that's how I see it. All right, so that's what we're dealing with today. Consciously and unconsciously, a lot of air. So work with it accordingly. The moon is still making its way up to the full moon, 87% of the way there. We're on the fourth position here. Fourth position of the wave spell of the mirror, which is a wave spell of endlessness, a wave spell of reflection. The fourth position is called the self-existing position or the self-existing tone, and today is a dragon day, right here in the middle, the dragon. The guide right above it is the earth, so you have the earth guided by the dragon, and more specifically, because this is a four-tone or the self-existing tone, today is the self-existing dragon guided by the earth. The phrase for today is I define in order to nurture measuring being. I steal the input of birth with the self-existing tone of form. I am guided by the power of navigation. And as I gave you notice the other day, we're about to hit the middle column here. The middle column it's like a magical place to be. It's a place where you can see the energies of the first 6 columns and the energies of the last 6 columns all revolving around here. This is the pillar around which all revolves. So what happens during these times? Well, it's always interesting times energetically. As long as I've been following along with the calendar system, whenever it gets here, it always seems and shows itself out to be interesting time of life. So we'll see how that all unfolds. But that's the next 20 days. Okay, and I believe that would be it for our cosmic weather report for today. We're going to continue forward with our 2012 theme. This time we're going to play again Terence McKenna. We have another piece called 2012 and the Coming Singularity. Of course, all of this is pointing to not just 2012 because we are in the middle of 2012, actually more than the middle. We are 86 days now, 86 days away from December 21st, 2012. 86 days. So whatever all of this excitement is about 2012, if it has not fully occurred yet, well, within the next 86 days could be a lot of excitement if all of this is to come to pass. Now, on another level, on the subtle level, things are already happening. It's happening, you can tell by the way people are acting. People are acting differently. You'll see some people say that the energy is just of life is wigging them out. More people are really tense by what's going on through all these shifts. They're not really knowing how to express why, other than they're just feeling the intensity of what's going on. Now, you can see the intensity. Things keep adding up, and the pressure keeps building up, and it's like we haven't learned the lessons, or the administrators haven't learned the lessons, and they keep dragging the people forward into situations. But with 2012, it seems to be a changing of the guard, people thinking a little differently, that they don't want to be treated like slaves anymore and step up. So that's part of the process of change that we're going through. So let's keep paying attention. 86 more days till we get to the date of December 21st, and I know that there is things going on a subtle energetic level. Things are changing. I could see it. I could feel it. I hear it when I talk to people, and I could see subtle energies and shifts going on when I was traveling across the country. I could see things taking place and changes. So I know stuff's happening. You know stuff's happening. Not everybody does, but that's all right. I guarantee you, though, the closer it gets to December 21st, there's going to be a lot more people paying attention to what's going on, because right now there are a lot of people who think that on December 21st, 2012, the world is going to come to an end. Well, when people think something's about to end, you never know what they might do. And henceforth, this is some of the reasons why you have all of the government buildup, because they, of course, are preparing, knowing that people will do whatever if they think the end is about to approach. Anyway, let me get on to the first piece here. This is Terence McKenna. Give a little preamble here. It says we are approaching a culmination of technological advancement and human achievement, what many refer to as the Singularity. This event is scheduled for sometime this century. Some believe it may happen as soon as 2012, when supercomputing capabilities reach the equivalent of the human brain. As we get closer to our predicament becomes more and more precarious, our very survival as a species will reach a tipping point that will either result in our extinction or our transcendence. One man, Terence McKenna, put forth the idea that this singularity we are approaching has somehow encoded in time itself and was recorded in the ancient Chinese divination text entitled the I Ching. He then incorporated his findings in a computer program called Time Wave Zero. The pattern he discovered repeats until it reaches an infinitely small length of time and an infinitely large level of intensity. Referred to as 0 point, this culmination is set to occur around December 21st, 2012. We are currently accelerating towards this unique and very important moment in our future. Through the use of psychedelics such as DMT, McKenna was able to explore the 0 point well before his death in April of 2000. Here, Terence, along with Gregory Stock, a biophysicist, shares their thoughts on the singularity and the nature and the transformation we will face in the very near future.
In a sense, this historical crisis, or this singularity that we're approaching, is like a transition from a low-dimensional world, say a world of 2 or 3 dimensions, to a world of 4, 5, or 6 dimensions. This is what I believe actually happens to a human brain-mind system under the influence of psychedelics. So in a way, the best practice for the approaching singularity is the repeated dissolving and reconstituting of one's personality through the use of psychedelic substances. This is one of the most interesting new psychedelics in the world. This is Salvia divinorum, and It is definitely one of the plants which will shape the next few decades of the new millennium. This is a coleus. It's ironic that these plants, which have been in our kitchens and in our windowsill flower beds for generations, turn out to contain psychoactive compounds as powerful as any known to science. These are not particularly interesting in terms of drugs, but they're certainly bizarre. When I take psychedelics, I always do it in a shamanic style, usually at night, usually alone, in nature if possible, and then I watch. I pay very close attention. I use my mind as an alchemical vessel for carrying out observations on the union of spirit, my personality, and matter, the physical matter of the substance that I'm ingesting. Nothing in human experience is as much like the singularity as a psychedelic experience. In a way, it's a microcosmic anticipation of this macrocosmic event in history. When we take psychedelics, we undergo a mini apocalypse, a mini revelation, and it positions us then for these larger events in the historical time stream. I'd like to climb up here with me. This is one of the most interesting plants in the garden. This is Psychotria viridis. This is the plant which causes the vision. When taken with ayahuasca, when taken as a liquid, the experience lasts about 4 to 6 hours. It's not as intense as smoking it. Smoking it is the most intense experience this side of the yawning grave.
Before his death in 2000, McKenna noticed an unrecognized pattern in the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. The 6 lines and 64 possible combinations can be expressed as a ratio of change in each hexagram and plotted on a graph. When McKenna mapped that graph over a timeline, he found intriguing correlations that matched all 4,000 years of recorded history. His graph starts with the I Ching's creation in China's Shang dynasty, the same period as the dawn of civilization in other parts of the world. The 64 hexagrams repeat 64 times over history. McKenna called his theory time wave zero. The highs and lows of his I Ching graph seem to have accurately predicted the fall of the Roman Empire, the discovery of the New World, and the world wars of the 20th century. But the strangest thing of all was that McKenna's timeline came to an end on one specific date, December 21st, 2012.
It was later that McKenna discovered that the Mayan civilization ended its calendar at the point of 2012. He felt there was something truly prophetic about that date.
Did the I Ching from ancient China and the Mayan calendar from medieval Mexico independently arrive at the same date for doomsday?
What I feel is particularly remarkable about the current time is that we have a number of prophecies that all seem to imply that something is going to happen in the 21st century.
What can we expect in the coming decades? The prospects of technology appeal to people's deepest fears as well as to their highest hopes. A rational debate about the future seems no longer possible. In fact, such discussion, by definition, is beyond our human capacities. Aren't we still too human to be prepared for becoming transhuman?
It is an enormous privilege to be alive right now and to be a part of this movement, and it's a very difficult time. I don't deny that at all. I look at it more as a birth pain, that here is this change that's occurring and we're coming down the birth canal and there's blood around and it's a difficult process, but it's a birth that is occurring. It's not a death. And I think that when future humans look back on this era from several hundred years in the future, they will not remember this time as one when we squandered the resources of the planet, when we destroyed our planet, essentially. They'll look at this as an extraordinary moment in time when we developed the basic technologies, the basis for their societies. We developed genetic engineering, the ability to basically rework our own genetic blueprint, which is something unprecedented. It's never happened in 3.5 billion years of history. We began to move out into space. For 3.5 billion years, life, all of life, has been constrained to this thin film on the surface of the planet. And now, quite suddenly, in just an instant in time, we're moving out towards the universe. And the third thing that has occurred in our era is artificial intelligence, computers. Suddenly, non-living material is beginning to achieve a level of complexity that rivals that of life itself. So these are three things that are absolutely unprecedented in the history of life. And they're occurring now. And is it any surprise that this is something that is jarring and shaking up the environment and causing extinctions? This is going to provide the basis not just for the next 100 years, but for thousands of years, tens of thousands, if not millions of years. And I see a long future stretching out ahead.
Obviously, if we're experiencing more change now in a year than we previously experienced in 1,000 years, we can propagate that trend into the future and see that a day will come when we will experience more change in an hour than we have experienced in the past 20, 30,000 years. A situation like that is unimaginable. So we call it a singularity, a place where the normal rules of modeling break down. Modern religions have anticipated the singularity by calling it the eschaton, or the end of time. Technological communities have anticipated the singularity by thinking in terms of artificial intelligences or something like that. In whatever form it takes, we seem to be on the cusp of a dramatic evolutionary leap into a deeper order of complexity than biology or biology plus culture has been able to provide. We're on the brink of something truly awesome and unknown.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk. And yes, this is the truly awesome unknown thing that we have arrived to the brink of. All right. We have 5 stories for today. First story number 1. This comes to us from San Diego. Black object moving over the San Diego airport. A Mission Hills, California witness reports watching a black sphere moving over San Diego airport about 4:45 p.m. on September 22nd. According to testimony from the MUFON database, the witness was 2 miles southeast on I-5 and I-8 intersection at Mission Hills when the object was first noticed. Most of the sky was covered in tropical clouds, but there was one large section south and southeast of which was mostly open blue sky, just a few small clouds, the witness stated. The open area would be over San Diego Airport. Clouds are moving fast, southwest to northeast pretty fast. The black object seemed to be moving against the wind. I saw one round black object that was moving against the wind from north to south towards the San Diego Airport. This black object was not moving fast, but was clearly moving against the wind. When I first saw the object, it was not directly over me, but already southeast of me. The black object was round or spherical. Could not tell how big it was, other than it was larger than a weather balloon, but smaller than a commercial. It was just below a few clouds that were in the open area. So there you go. Report number 1: a large black object against the wind. Okay. Next story, over England and Ireland on the 21st of September. Thousands of people crossed the United Kingdom reported seeing extremely large bright lights across the night sky. The media has been assuming that they are meteors. However, obviously they are not. Meteors enters the Earth's atmosphere at the speed of 30 to 100,000 miles per hour. So let's hear what he says.
Watching TV, and I have a side window in my front room, and was suddenly aware of this bright colours scorching across the sky. Initially, you think it was like very large fireworks because it was so colourful, and I immediately sort of got out of my chair, looked out the window, saw it heading in a westerly direction, and ran to the back of the house, to the kitchen, left the light off so I could watch this, and it became self-evident it was something pretty large breaking up in the atmosphere. I've seen shooting stars and meteor showers before, but this was much larger and much more colourful.
Absolutely, you caught me watching it there. It's absolutely incredible stuff, isn't it? And do.
All right, so that's our next story. Moving right along here. This is over Ireland as well, probably the same thing. I know the quality video is crap, but still, it was something not from this world. At the beginning, it glowed with a single bright light. A few moments, changed colors on yellow, green, creating a triangle. I'm sure it wasn't a plane, helicopter, or balloon. So this is another sighting over Ireland. This is captured in a different angle, different way than the other. See it right here. Looks like we even got two of them. Alright, very interesting. This video itself, you see it's 2 minutes 25 seconds. I don't think it does anything spectacular other than just hangs there. Okay, next up, moving right along. This was over Amsterdam on the 24th. New footage of a bright unidentified flying object of some kind of spheres above Amsterdam on the 24th. Alright, question is, what about this footage, fake or real? So let's see what we got. We got 2.5 minute long video. I'm looking, but not seeing. Alright, there we go, right here in the middle. You got 3 lights. Could be 3 separate lights from 3 different objects, or all part of the same craft, same object, because they are in position that could be angled as such. Alright, if you enlarge this video, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. The link will be up in a while. This is some more UFO activity around the sun. Okay. This was seen in SOHO telescope, and that is used to look at all of these things. Aliens and anomalies near the sun. Review of real sun photos of September 25th, 2012. On this day, the data from the satellite SOHO vanished in 1545. People asked NASA, "What is it?" Some people, NASA said it's spoiled pixels. NASA says it is the effect of radiation from the sun. To a third person, NASA says this comet and asteroid by asteroidally. NASA keeps saying different. NASA is deceiving people. Objects have a regular geometric shape. So basically, people have been contacting to find out. NASA is telling them this is nothing. These are natural events, natural phenomena. However, these natural phenomena up to this point in time hasn't really been captured in such a way. So perhaps it's not so natural. Perhaps there's a gathering of some sort. Okay, so there is something going on out there. You could see this was a 3-minute video. And as we go through, you could see all the different clips that show something going on up there. Alright. That's up on the sun. And the very last story here. This is Britain visited by one UFO a month, but the MOD rules they pose no threat. Now, this is the important part of this story here. The MOD rules they pose no threat. Because we hear the stories that aliens are going to attack, right? We need to be concerned about their upcoming attacks and invasions. Yet, the Ministry of Defense has ruled that they pose no threat. So, perhaps the stories of the invasions have been greatly exaggerated. In the United States of America, we have, or used to have, Project Blue Book. Project Blue Book was disbanded in the 60s because the United States military found that there was no threat, no security issue that needed to be dealt with. So when these stories come out about potential threats, potential invasions, we need to question why that story comes out when the very agencies themselves, such as the MOD or United States Air Force, come out with their own determinations that they're no threat. So obviously they have a chance. It says here it's official, at least. Britain is not at risk from unidentified flying objects. Those who have long feared an invasion from Mars or further afield can relax, at least that is if they believe the Ministry of Defense. The end has been ordered to all official investigations of unidentified flying objects after the ministry ruled out they did not pose a threat to the nation's security. Okay, so if they're not posing a threat, if we're being told by these different agencies that they don't pose a threat, then what are they doing? Are they just observing? These are questions to answer. What are they if they're not a threat? Obviously, then if they're not a threat, then the movies and the stories that are told that lead and get you to believe they are simply that, propaganda, stories. Are they things that are coming from the psyche of the human mind who can only believe that these things happen? Is it coming from a past memory, from a past life that people are remembering and they're writing them in the stories? All good possibilities. But bottom line, as we could see here, there's not a threat. So that's the thing we need to take away from this and not get caught up in all of the nonsense that tells us that there are threats to worry about. Anyway, that's the UFO news. Let me jump away for a moment. I'll be right back.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People shouldn't be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid.
All right, there we go. Continuing on, I have more things to talk about here. Okay, today is Yom Kippur. Today is Yom Kippur, so I wanted to bring this to your attention. It's called the Day of Atonement, Day of Fasting, Prayer, Repentance. It lasts from last evening, and it goes all the way through this evening. And this is the greeting, have an easy fast, is the greeting that is used. Anyway, this comes to us from jewfaq.org, Judaism 101. It's a good site to keep you informed on some of the traditions that are maintained. It says Yom Kippur is probably the most important holiday of the Jewish year. Many Jews who do not observe any other Jewish custom will refrain from work, fast, and or attend synagogue services on this day. Yom Kippur occurs on the 10th day of Tishri. A holiday is instituted in Leviticus 23:26, and it says, "In the 7th month of the 10th day of that month you shall afflict your souls, and you shall not do any work, for on that day he shall provide atonement for you to cleanse you from all of your sins before the Lord." Okay, so today is a day of atonement. The name Yom Kippur means Day of Atonement and pretty much explains what the holiday is all about. It is a day set aside to afflict the soul, to atone for the sins of the past year. In the days of awe, I mentioned books in which God describes all of the names. On Yom Kippur, the judgment entered into these books is sealed. The day is essentially your last appeal, your last chance to change the judgment, to demonstrate your repentance, to make amends. It says here, Yom Kippur atones only for sins between God and not sins against another person. To atone for sins against another person, you must first seek reconciliation with that person, righting the wrongs you committed against them if possible. This all must be done before Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is a complete Sabbath. No work can be performed on that day. It is well known that you are supposed to refrain from eating and drinking on Yom Kippur. It is a 25-hour fast beginning before sunset on the evening before Yom Kippur and ending after nightfall on the day of Yom Kippur. The Talmud also refers to the additional restrictions that are less well known, such as washing, bathing, anointing one's hands, wearing leather shoes, engaging in sexual relations. They're all prohibited on Yom Kippur. So anyway, it's an important day. We should all, doesn't matter what your religious background is, we should all take time out to pay attention to these various traditions. This one is a very important one. The Jewish people lived a long time. We've read their stories throughout the Bible. They're a very important part of our world history, our world story. And to take time out to atone for the things that we've done is very important. It helps to keep humanity humbled. Sometimes there's a tendency to get a little too big for the britches, thinking about all the things that were done, or forgetting about the wrongs that were due to others because maybe they're small little things. And sometimes we allow these to build up, and they don't do us any good, because then they build up and we mistrust each other and all this other nonsense that goes on in the world. Today we need to atone. We need to remember. Think about the things we've done wrong and find ways to make ourselves better. Isn't that the whole idea in life? Continue to try to make ourselves better as beings upon this planet, as children of the great Creator. That's the objective. So this is great. We should all take time out during the course of today, even if you're not Jewish. Just take some time out, contemplate your life. Contemplate the things that you've done in your life that you felt that were wrongs committed against others, or against the Creator, or against life. They might be small things, they might not be real severe, but just take time out to think about them. Understand perhaps why you behaved in such a way, and how you might want to behave differently, and why you might want to. See what you learned from it. See what kind of experience you have if you speak with somebody that you had some bad vibes with. See what you can do to affect a change. Even just one thing today. Just affect one change, because those little changes you do that deal with soul-related issues, they can go a long, long way, just doing one little thing. So use this, and especially even if you're not Jewish. See how you feel if you put yourself in a place of understanding this tradition, and why every year, for all of these years, this tradition has been followed. So check it out, see what you think. All right, let's move on here. Now, one of the things that we deal with each and every day is the mainstream media. The mainstream media. And the mainstream media is quite tricky. You've got Fox News, which tries to convince you that they're not part of the mainstream media. That's their new thing now, because they're cable television. But since they changed television from the antennas to the cable signal, it's all cable television now. Or could be, satellite, but kind of the same basic idea, right? So they're trying to convince people of that. I hear the mainstream media, these stations, try to convince others that they're not even media. The media is doing this, but we do this. And it's kind of silly, because all they're doing is deceiving people. Look, if you've got any station like Fox or CNN or any of the mainstream news that need to come on and try to give you a different definition of who and what they're about, and you're expected to believe that, something's not right. But why is it that all of these situations occur? Why do we trust the media? And it's real simple. It's real simple. We allow people in our houses. When people come into our houses, they are our guests. So on a regular basis, when you turn the television on and the signal's coming into your house, in a way, you're inviting these images into your house as your guests. So day after day, you turn on the mainstream media. And in many cases, this has been happening every day for years and years and years. Families have gathered around television sets to watch the news, watch what the reporters had to say. But over time, the way the reporters have behaved has become different. The reporters now are not standing by the same integrity they once did, and yet the people that are turning on the televisions, letting them into the house, are still doing so as they're a guest coming to the house. They've welcomed them in. What they say is important. Well, the people are still doing what they were doing, but the difference is the mainstream media, or the media in general, those who are coming in with the news, they're misinforming people. And that's sad because they have taken the trust that people have put into them and they've thrown it away. So this is an article over at Natural News. It says, if you're an avid reader of Natural News, maybe the headline of the story doesn't surprise you because obviously you're here for information you just can't get on the so-called establishment mainstream media. But perhaps you didn't know the extent of the mistrust the American people have for the Fourth Estate, which was at our nation's founding given unique and unprecedented freedoms so as to afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. So much for the original agreement. According to the recent Gallup survey, Americans' distrust the media hit a high record this year, with 60% saying they have little or no trust in the mass media to report the news fully, accurately, and fairly. The alarming figure is a result of a trend seen worsening over the past few years as more and more Americans become less and less trustful of big media. How low will the distrust go? Well, the distrust also means the negativity towards the media is at an all-time high for a presidential election year, the Gallup survey says. This reflects the continuation of a pattern in which negativity increases every election year compared with the years prior. What's more, as negativity rises, the already yawning gap between approval and disapproval has grown wider. The current 20-point gap, said the analysis, is the highest by far since Gallup began this particular survey. It hasn't always been this way. Trust in the media prior to 2004 was actually much higher and more positive. It was as high as 72% when the question was asked by the Gallup in the 1970s. So things have changed. That's because the reporters have changed. That's because the business of news has changed. The business of news is business. It's run by corporate America in many cases. Corporate America pays big bucks for the reporters to tell the stories that are going to make their corporations look good. They don't want to tell stories that make the corporations look bad. So the reporters go on and toe the line, even though they know in many cases what they're saying is not right. They still go ahead and toe the line. And that's the problem. When the reporters stop doing that, people will be able to trust them again. But they've really gone a long way of creating distrust by jeopardizing their own integrity. And that's what independent media is about. That's why programs like this, and there are a lot of these type of programs, that's why they're important. We may not get millions and millions and millions of hits like some of the mainstream, but there's millions of us out there that are getting hits here and there and passing information. So we're sharing, and we've created a network that is very important. And so I know I draw off of other independent media sources, and I'm sure others pull from things that I'm bringing out, and so on and so forth. That's kind of how this whole thing works. We help each other out. I'm not sure if they're doing the same way in the mainstream. But anyway, let's move from there. You got the idea, right? They're not being honest, but you have your eyes open. I know you're paying attention, so that's good. Now, here's a Paul Joseph Watson article, 30 examples why America is no longer a free country. From people being harassed for paying by cash or having a food garden to Americans being arrested for letting their children play outside, innumerable examples over the past few months alone illustrate the United States is no longer a free country. The nanny state is no longer just on steroids. It has turned into the incredible Hulk as collectivism, pernicious bureaucracy, regulation, mass surveillance, and outright tyranny runs wild across the country. So here's just a couple of stories along here. There's a whole bunch of them. But let me just give you a few examples. Stay-at-home mom in Texas was held in jail for 18 hours for allowing children to ride on scooters. The war on lemonade stand, traditionally viewed as quaint example of America's entrepreneurial spirit, has intensified, with cops slapping parents with fines for letting the kids run unlicensed lemonade stands. Here we have an 11-year-old battle with the state of Oregon landowner Gary Harrington, found guilty under the 1925 law and sentenced to spend 30 days in jail for collecting rainwater in 3 illegal reservoirs. Last year, Oak Park, Michigan resident Julie Bass faced jail time for the crime of growing a vegetable garden in the front yard space. Americans are being harassed by utility workers who are trespassing on private property and forcibly trying to install smart energy meters which spy on homeowners. Cities are passing off ordinances that make recycling compulsory from those who fail to comply under new threat to fines of up to $2,500. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled that private contractors operating toll roads on behalf of the state have the power to detain and store records on motorists who pay by cash at toll booths. Earlier this year, reported how the FBI was telling businesses to treat people who use cash to pay for a cup of coffee as potential terrorists. So you can see, things are not right. Things are not right. I'm not going to go down that whole list because, well, quite frankly, it bums me out. I went across this country not too long ago. We are in the midst of putting together our documentaries and programs, and we have quite a few. We captured a lot more footage than we realized, and as we're going through all of it, we've got quite a journey and quite a lot of stuff that we're putting together. I'll get some clips and I'll be showing you some clips. But anyway, in relation to this article, yeah, I got to see examples where America is no longer free. Sure, there's the illusion that it's free. There's a lot of things that people do where they're not harassed and hassled, but it's very evident that the police state exists, and in many cases it's hidden, but when it needs to come out, it comes out, and it rears its ugly head, and it's very, well, it's a concern, and I think all Americans should be concerned about this security and this liberty that's taken away. Unfortunately, it's not really put out there. A lot of people don't really understand, so they just go with what's going on and they don't understand. Okay, so we've heard these in the movies about super soldiers. Well, here DARPA continues human experiments to create super soldiers. DARPA, it's called the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. It's the United States military, and it has a $2 billion yearly budget for research into creating super soldier, as well as developing a synthetic police force. Working with the human genome, DARPA hopes to manipulate certain gene expressions and manipulation. DARPA and the military, industrial, pharmaceutical complex are using natural abilities that are enhanced through genetic engineering. So basically the stuff that you heard about with like the $6 million man or the $6 million woman, or even in the more recent years, the computer-related shows of the combining of the computers and the humans and all this super soldier experiments we hear about in the movies of the nanobots and so on. Yeah, that's what they're doing. It's real. It's not just science fiction. So anyway, all right. Before we close out, I'm going to play this. Then I'm going to do the reading of the Warrior of Light. This is Edgar Cayce. It's a 5-minute piece. Top 10 Edgar Cayce predictions.
Hi, this is Greg from N5D.com, and today we're going to be talking about Edgar Cayce's top 10 predictions. Edgar Cayce, also known as the Sleeping Prophet, correctly predicted the stock market crash and the Great Depression of 1929. The beginning of World War II, and many earth changes of modern times. Cayce is also considered to be the father of holistic medicine by JAMA, the prestigious medical journal. The following is a list of the most memorable Edgar Cayce predictions. And here we go. Number 1. The greater portion of Europe will be changed in the twinkling of an eye. Cayce added that Japan will eventually go into the sea, and that land will appear off the east coast of America. Number 2. There will be a shifting of the poles. We are already witnessing a magnetic pole shift, so this prediction is coming to fruition already. Perhaps this is related to Cayce's quote stating that the Earth is catching up with time. If you look at the more info section of this video, you'll find a bunch of Cayce-related articles on n5d.com, and this one specifically addresses Cayce's proposition of the Earth catching up with time. There's also another article in which Cayce talks about 1111. Number 3. There will come a time when the sun will be darkened. It is believed that this will signify a spiritually awakening event. Number 4. The city of Atlantis will be found near Bimini. Cayce added that quartz crystals will be recognized for their healing properties to uplift, empower, and synchronize many types of energy, such as light and electricity. Number 5. The records of Atlantis will be open to those that are spiritual initiates. Cayce believes that a secret chamber will be found, and the rising of the temple will make these records accessible. When asked, "Can you give in detail what the sealed room contains?" referring to the Atlantean library, Cayce responded that it has a record of Atlantis from the beginning of those periods when the spirit took form. Cayce also predicted that Atlantis must rise again. Number 6. A new field of science will be developed based on psychic spiritual phenomenon. This is already where we're heading with the current spiritual awakening. Number 7. A city of gold will be discovered in the Gobi Desert. According to Cayce, it will have a temple with elevators, electric cars, and magical elements. Number 8. New York State's East Coast and New York City itself will disappear. Well, let's hope not. Number 9. America's West Coast will be destroyed. Let's hope not on this one too. Cayce added that there will be widespread destruction in Los Angeles and San Francisco, as well as in many portions of the West Coast. Land will appear off the coast of America, and I'm assuming that that land will be on the East Coast, and it's probably what Cayce describes as being Atlantis. Cayce also stated that the Great Lakes will drain into the Gulf of Mexico through the Mississippi River. You gotta think that this is related to the New Madrid fault line. Cayce added that earth changes will occur in the central portion of the United States as well. He said that there will be some safe places in the United States. They are Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and the central and some eastern states, to name a few. That being said, I live on the Gulf Coast of Florida, 2 miles from the Gulf of Mexico, and I have no plans on moving. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and you can't live your life in fear. Besides, we never truly die, as we are all spiritual beings having a human experience. And number 10, which I think is the coolest one, Cayce envisioned that a time would come when all individuals would realize their responsibility toward one another, and that this would be a realization that will change the mass thought of humanity. It seems like we're already going through this one too. Cayce predicted that there will be 3 profound archaeological discoveries of a very ancient and important nature that will revolutionize the way we understand human origins. Cayce stated that this will occur when humanity reaches a higher level of spirituality. He predicted a new era of peace and enlightenment will follow the tremendous earth changes. Cayce foresaw a new era of enlightenment and peace for humanity in the future, and a unified field of energy that would someday shift the consciousness field of humanity. If you go to the more info section of this video, you'll find additional maps, pictures, and videos that support Cayce's predictions. You'll also find a few other cool links about Edgar Cayce. Be sure to subscribe to N5D videos if you haven't already. Also, check out n5d.com as it is updated every day of the year. That's it for now. This is Greg from N5D.
Alright, some good information on Edgar Cayce. Alright, very good, very good. Okay, last, let's get to our book, Warrior of the Light. Warrior of the Light. I hope that you're enjoying the reading of this book. I've always liked this book, and I hope you do too. The Warrior of the Light behaves like a child. People are shocked They have forgotten that a child needs to have fun and to play, to be slightly irreverent, and to ask awkward childish questions, to talk nonsense that not even he believes in. They say, horrified. So this is the spiritual path it is? He's so immature. The warrior feels proud of such comments, and he remains in touch with God throughout his innocence and his joy without ever losing sight of his mission. The Latin root of the word responsibility reveals its true meaning, the capacity to respond, to react. A responsible warrior is one who has proved able to observe and to learn. He is even capable of being irresponsible. Sometimes he has allowed himself to be carried along by a situation without responding or reacting, but always learned his lesson. He took a stand, listened to advice, and was humble enough to accept help. A responsible warrior is not someone who takes the weight of the world on a soldier, but someone who has learned to deal with the challenges of the moment. A warrior of the light cannot always choose his battlefield. Sometimes in the midst of battles, not of his choosing, he is taken by surprise. But there is no point in running away. Those battles merely follow him. Then at the point when conflict seems almost inevitable, the warrior talks to his opponent, showing another fear, neither fear nor cowardice. He tries to find out why the other man wants to fight. What made him leave the village in order to seek out to fight this duel? Without even unsheathing his sword, the warrior persuades his opponent that this is not a fight for him. The warrior of the light listens to what his opponent has to say. He only fights if absolutely necessary. The warrior of the light is terrified when making important decisions. This is too much for you, says a friend. Go on, be brave, says another. And so his doubts grow. After some days of anxiety, he withdraws to the corner of his tent where he usually sits to meditate and pray. He sees himself in the future. He sees people who will benefit or be harmed by his attitude. He does not want to cause pointless suffering, but nor does he want to abandon the path. The warrior allows the decision to reveal itself. If he has to say yes, he will say it bravely. If he has to say no, he will say it without a trace of cowardice. A warrior of the light accepts his personal legend. His companions say, he has remarkable faith. For a moment the warrior feels proud, then immediately feels ashamed of what he has learned because he does not have such faith as others appear to that he has. At that moment his angel whispers, you are only an instrument of the light. There is no reason to feel proud or to feel guilty. There are only reasons to feel happy. And the warrior of the light, aware now that he is but an instrument, feels calmer and more secure. Hitler may have lost the war on the battlefield, but he ended up winning something too, says Mark Halter, because man in the 20th century created the concentration camp and revived torture and taught his fellow man that it is possible to close their eyes to the misfortunes of others. Perhaps he is right. There are abandoned children, massacred civilians, innocent people in prison, lonely old people, drunks in the gutters, madmen in power. But perhaps he isn't right at all. For there are also warriors of the light, and warriors of the light never accept what is unacceptable. Just take a deep breath. Exhale. All right, think of all the qualities of the warrior of the light. Recognize that all of these qualities exist within you. Understand the energy and the power you have available to you, and the responsibility you have in the way in which you use this power and this energy. Activate all of your chakras from the bottom of the spine up. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and indigo. Imagine the color green from the heart chakra filling your entire body, filling your room, and finally sending it out across the globe. to each and every person on the planet. And take a moment to feel the love being sent your way and send out the energy of gratitude, thankfulness. And finally, let's take a moment to think of the wrongs we have done in the past. Ask for forgiveness from the universe that we might atone for those wrongs, and then step forward into the world imagining life a little less burdensome without the problems following us anymore. Let's bring our energy and intention back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3 coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2 coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1 coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. There you have it. That's the show for today. Have a great, wonderful day. I'll be back tomorrow with more news information. Till then, be safe. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.